When the paramedics arrived, they did not expect to see anyone alive. When they saw the car, they saw the 18-wheeler, and they knew there was no one alive. But we were. I was alive. My daughter, who was driving, was alive, but my son, Will, was not. I came to for a moment, and I could feel my daughter. I'd been knocked unconscious. I could feel my daughter. I could feel she was in the car. I slowly looked over, and I could see her face just covered in blood and glass embedded into her face, her lips shredded. It was awful. But I could not feel my son. And if you're a mother, you know what I'm talking about. You could feel your child's presence. And Will was not there. Our son Will was sitting in the back seat behind the driver. I was not driving. That's where he was sitting. And when I looked back to see him, because he wasn't there, I couldn't feel him. His spirit was not there. And it was empty. It was empty. The back seat was empty, but there was a body back there. And I looked to see, and blood was pouring out of his nose, his mouth, his eyes, his ears. I mean, it was the worst sight I'd ever seen. And I went back unconscious again. And so that's hard to start off this video with, but I am here to tell you, Resurrection Life is for you, and it was for me and my son, Will. There was he came in at a level 3 coma, level 3. There was nothing that could be done. He was just on life support. Literally, I didn't know at that time, but to keep his organs alive. And the doctor came out and said to me, he said, Miss Bond, you've got to prepare yourself. His brain sits on a brain stem. I don't know if you can see, but this is the brain, and this is the stem. And he did a motion, and he said the brain was severed from the brain stem. The impact of 250,000 pounds of pressure had knocked the brain off the stem. And she stood up and she held her finger up and she said, but my God is a very present help in time of trouble, and he is here. He's here. And I want you to know that when she said that, something happened to me. Something happened to me. And it's what's going to happen to you today. God gave me a word yesterday. I was on a call with someone that's a part of our ministry team, and what happened was God said to me, it's impossible to live after that. But if God said he's going to live, he's going to live. But guess what? My husband and I were the key factors between life and death. Key. So number one, I've got me some notes here. Number one, you've got to get a word from God. You've got to get a word. My word came. God's a very present help in time of trouble, and he's here. He was here. He was there. Okay? So number one, get a word. Number two is you have to fight with the word. Number two is fight. Fight. Fight with the word. I'm going to read this from the Amplified Version, and it's in Isaiah. It's Isaiah 55. Just listen. Listen to this. It says, so my word, which goes out of my mouth, it will not return to me void. It will not. Or useless. God sent it for a purpose. We've got to use it. He says it will not return to me void, useless, or without results, without accomplishing what I purpose and desire, and without succeeding in the matter for which I sent it. I sent it. So you've got to use the word. Number two. Number three, now you're not going to like this one, but you've got to guard the door. You've got to guard the door. We would not let anybody in our son's room. He was in a trauma center for 40 days. We would not let anyone in to see him who did not have faith. You have to guard the door. I had a lady travel 4 states over to come see him, and I would not let her in the door. I had numerous people I had to say, no, I'm sorry. No, I wasn't sorry. I knew God said, do not let any unbelief in this room. Okay? Guard the door. I don't care if it is your best friend. I don't even care if it is your mama. My mama didn't even get in the door. My daddy didn't get in the door. Only believers got in our door. No wailing, no crying. If you're wailing and crying and snotting, you're not going to come in to see my son. The next thing is you guard the door, and then the next point I want to make is God told me to call him out. Call our son out. Call him, call him, call him. Now, my husband was there. His 2 sisters were there, but God told me I was the mama. I had birthed him. He had come out of the womb, and now I have to call him out of a coma. I was to do it. I don't understand it, but that's what God told me. He didn't tell my husband to call him out. He told me to call him out. The next point I want to make is we were in his room 24/7. 24/7. My husband and I and my 2 daughters who had faith, we would rotate around the clock declaring the word 24/7. 24/7. We're either praying, we were declaring the word, I was calling him out by name, by name. It so resonates with me, and it's in John 11. And it's the account of Lazarus. The account of Lazarus, okay? It says, this is 11:38, and it says, Jesus came groaning in himself to the grave. I mean, he was groaning, okay? Within himself. Within himself. I want to say something on that I hadn't planned to say, but I'm going to say this. When the doctor told me that the brain was severed from the brain stem, he told me not to repeat it. That's another point. Do not repeat the negative declaration that has been made. God said, do not repeat it, not even to your husband. Okay? And I did not repeat it until God told me to, because it would have drained the faith out of those that were believing. So I did not. So it's interesting here. Jesus said he groaned in himself. I mean, so I had to hold something in myself that I was groaning, begging God to put the brain back on the brain stem. Okay? So he's groaning in himself. Listen to that. And it was a cave, and a stone lay by it. And then Jesus said, he was very direct. Jesus said, take the stone away. Get it away. Martha, the sister of Lazarus, said unto him, but Lord, it stinks. Okay? This is why you cannot have negative people in your presence when you're fighting for life. They're going to give you 5 good reasons why it's not going to work. Martha's even saying, Jesus, it's not going to work. Don't move the stone. We were told it's not going to work. He's dead. There's no life. We're just keeping his organs alive. He's not there. I said, yes, he is. He is in there. Okay. From the place where the dead was laid. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and he said, Father, I thank you that you've heard me. Jesus had so much faith. He knew God heard his groaning. He knew, okay? I'm not going to preach. Verse 43 said, then he hollered, listen, in a loud voice. When I hollered in a loud voice, you know what they did? A doctor in a white suit and 2 nurses in white suits came to usher me out to sedate me. And they said, ma'am, you're not accepting your reality. Your son is not going to live. We're going to sedate you. And I stood up. Again, they took me in this little conference room. I said, no, he's alive. He is going to live. He's coming out of that body. He is going to live. You will not sedate me. And so Jesus hollers in a loud voice and said, Lazarus, come forth. Come forth. Loose him and let him go. He came forth. Lazarus comes forth. Loose him and let him go. And then I love this. I love this. Listen to this. In verse 47, it says, the chief priests and the Pharisees called a meeting and a council and said, what are we to do? What are we to do? For this man performs many miracles, signs and wonders, miracles. Listen, if we let him alone to go on like this, everyone will believe. Everyone. Everyone. I really believe that, and I'm going to show you in a few minutes, I really believe that when you grasp hold of a miracle that God has done in your own life and you begin to release it, it is a time like no time in history ever for everyone to believe. Everyone to believe. Lazarus was raised from the dead. Jesus was raised from the dead. And now I can say our son was raised from the dead. And we believe. And do you know that as we declare it, it says the whole world will believe. Ask the doctors to talk to us outside the door. Outside the door. We did not want Will hearing it, okay? And, you know, Will could hear. He's laying there totally in a coma, but he could hear. And one other point I want to make, I've got a bunch of more things, but we got another guest that I want to share with you, but that's also had a death experience, and I can't wait for him to share. But a couple of more points is the fact that Will could hear. He needed to hear the word, and God showed us Will's Bible in the wreckage of the car. We found it. And it was about the 3rd day, and so we found his Bible all crumpled up in the wreckage, but we looked, and there was a tiny postage stamp that Will had used as a bookmarker. It was like it was a letter from God with a stamp on it. And so we opened the Bible right to where that scripture was with the postage stamp. And listen to this. Now here, it's the 3rd day, okay? This is what it said. This is amazing. It says, truly, it was like Will was talking to me. Truly, my soul waits on God. I'm like, what? From him comes my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense, and I shall not be moved. It was all underlined in his Bible. I think it was even highlighted. It was highlighted in his Bible. I shall not be moved. I'm like, okay. And then it went on down. Listen to this. And it said, there was a part in it, in his translation, it says, my soul waits in silence. What? Will's laying there. Will, you're laying there. Completely silent in a coma, and I'm reading in his Bible that says, my soul is waiting in silence. I'm waiting on God. Do you know what that said to me? Okay, Will's okay. It's going to be okay. He's in silence. but he is going to come out of it. I shall not be moved. He said, I shall not be moved. I'm like, shh. And then this is the next part. Now I'm reading out of my Bible, but I wish I had his. But my soul waits only on God, and my expectation is of him. He only is my rock. He is my defense. In other words, that semi-truck couldn't take him out. Okay, it hit him, but it couldn't take him out.